Hi, you guys. It's Jennifer. Welcome back to Busy Being Jen. I'm here today to talk about menopause and some of the symptoms you might experience in post-menopause. So come along, be sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. So yeah, menopause. I am 57 years old. I actually went through menopause, finished going through menopause a couple of years ago. And I just kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about that journey, but really focus on some of the symptoms that I started to have once I actually completed menopause and my period stopped, and some of the things that I did not expect. So I started in perimenopause in my late 40s, just some random hot flashes and sporadic periods and things like that. And when I was 50, I had a uterine ablation. And so that stopped my periods mostly, except that about once a month, I would notice a little bit of spotting so that I could tell that if I hadn't had the ablation that I would probably still be having my monthly visitor. But when I finally did start going through like some pretty serious menopause, it really wasn't that hard for me going through those, the symptoms, because what I had basically was daily hot flashes, maybe 4 or 5 hot flashes a day for 2 years. And that was it. And then they stopped. And I thought that was it. My mom never really went through menopause in the standard sense. She had a total hysterectomy in her late 40s and went on hormone replacement therapy. And, just she didn't have anything to share with me about menopause. So I was kind of forging my way through this alone. But I thought I had gotten off pretty easy. I thought, hot flashes stink, but, I got through them. And my whole view of menopause was that you put up with some uncomfortable symptoms for a few years, and then you get a prize at the end because your period stops. And I had no idea what comes along with post-menopause. I had no idea. And so we're going to focus on that here today. So when I was going through the worst of my hot flashes, the 4 or 5 a day, I learned how to stop my hot flashes pretty quickly, but I always had to have something cold on hand or I would not be able to do it. I'd just go into a full drenching sweat. But if I could have my hand on an ice pack or a cold drink or something that I could put on my neck, I usually was able to stop the hot flashes. So in my freezer at any given time, I had this kind of a ugly scarf looking thing that had a gel pack that you could freeze, that was in it. And so if I started to feel one coming on, I would just tie it around my neck and then keep doing whatever I was doing. If that one, as soon as I was finished with that, I'd put it back in the freezer. But if it hadn't gotten cold enough yet and I had another hot flash coming on, I had these little round disc kind of ice packs that I would stuff one in each side of my bra. And that kind of helped to do the trick for stopping the hot flash. And so I just, I did that for a couple of years. It wasn't fun, but it was not as bad as I hear that some women, go through it. So I wasn't complaining. So then I hit menopause. And I was like, cool, this was pretty easy. No need for me to go on hormone replacement therapy. Everything was fine. And then about a year after, or in the following year after I hit menopause, and you can find out from blood work. I mean, obviously, if your period stops, that's one indication, but I had an ablation, so I didn't really know. But my endocrinologist was monitoring my follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, which is an indication of when you hit menopause. When it hits 30 as the number, that means that you're officially in menopause. The number gets higher, the less and less estrogen you have in your body. So anyway, that's one thing that a doctor can do with blood work. But in that year, I started to notice some things that I didn't really I kind of associated them with menopause, like my skin seemed more dry, and it seemed like I was getting more wrinkles, and my hair seemed really dry, and so some of those kind of things that I was experiencing. But then when I was getting to closer to 2 years out from hitting menopause, I really started to notice some things that were concerning to me. I started having night sweats. I'd never had night sweats before, but I was having them every night. I would wake up in the morning, my hair would be all frizzy. I was starting to have some occasional hot flashes again during the day. One of the things that I did go to my gynecologist about was that I was having dryness like down there, and making interactions with my husband very uncomfortable. Everything felt like sandpaper down there. And so I got on an estradiol cream that you put in a couple days a week, and then that helps to it just kind of changes out the skin that's in there that's thin and dry, and kind of helps it turn back into the kind of skin you had when you were younger. So those were some of the things that I did kind of associate with menopause. But then there were some other things that had not occurred to me. I started to have breast pain. I've got a list here. I started to have really unusual sugar cravings. Like, I'm usually a starch person, but I was really hungry all the time for sweet things, and didn't just have the cravings. I actually went ahead and ate them. I felt like, my hair was getting thinner, but I was feeling like there's a lot of reasons why my hair could have been getting thinner, but that is one of the things that can happen with postmenopause. And, but then I was feeling very tired. I was depressed, not depression like crying all the time, but more like, so this is what my life is going to be like for the next 30 years, and then I'm going to die. So I really was just kind of not looking forward to anything in life, and just sort of thinking, and nothing really excited me. So clearly some depression and forgetfulness. I was so noticeably forgetful. I had neon sticky notes all over this door that goes from our kitchen into our garage, and I would put them on there. So you might think, well, why didn't you use a planner? Well, I did. I wrote things down in a planner, and then I would forget to look at it. So I just had notes everywhere to remind me of stuff. Along with that, with the fatigue, I would be thinking, I need to do this. So I would just write it down. I'd be sitting on the couch, and I'd have a notepad on the coffee table, and I would just write down, you need to do this. But I can't do it now. Even if it was just the simplest little thing, I would just write it down, because I just didn't feel like I wanted to get up and go do anything. And so that was starting to bother me. Just all of this stuff with my overall mood not being like my normal self was concerning me. But the last straw, when I really thought there is something seriously wrong with me, was when I started to have joint pain. My ankles hurt, my knees hurt, my hips, my elbows, my wrists. And when that started to happen, I thought, okay, like something is really, really wrong with me. This was right at the beginning of COVID. It was in March when I started feeling this way. And I thought, oh my gosh, when this pandemic is over, when this pandemic is over, I need to get to a doctor, because something is very, very wrong with me. Like I thought I had something life-threatening going on, and I was super worried about it. So anyway, I just happened to stumble upon a YouTuber's channel where she was talking about menopause, and she mentioned another YouTube channel called Menopause Taylor. And this doctor is a gynecologist who specializes in menopause, all things menopause. And I was really intrigued and wanting to find out, like what of my symptoms are related to menopause. I was not thinking the joint pain or some of those other things, the forgetfulness. I wasn't relating those to menopause, but I thought, it'd be interesting to know, what things I'm experiencing are related to that. And she has this video that tells the 22 symptoms of postmenopause. And I had 11 of them, 11 of those symptoms. Let me read them. I've said them, but in order. Fatigue, depression, forgetfulness, hot flashes, night sweats, dry skin, dry thinning hair, joint pain, sugar cravings, vaginal dryness, and breast pain. Yeah. So I, first of all, felt like I was going to cry when I saw that list, because it just confirmed for me that, one, I wasn't going crazy, and two, I wasn't terminally ill. And I really thought that there was something very seriously wrong with me. So then I started watching some of her other videos, and let me tell you how she sets up her videos on her channel. All of her videos are numbered from 1 through, I don't know where she is in them now, 197. I have no idea, but she's got a lot, and she wants you to go through the videos in order. I didn't. And I actually would say to you to not go in order either. At first, I mean, it is helpful to go from beginning to end and learn. I mean, you're going to get a wealth of information about menopause and about how your body works that you never understood before. It's amazing, all of the information she has. But the two videos, or the two sections of her channel that I think are really important to watch first are, one, the video that tells the symptoms of postmenopause, because if you're feeling some really weird symptoms, things that you've not experienced before, and then you see this list of 22 possible things, you might, like me, realize that you're not going crazy and you're not terribly ill. It's just menopause. And if your symptoms, the things you're experiencing right now, are not on that list, then you need to go talk to a doctor about that. But that is the first one. And then she has a section of videos where she's talking about the estrogen window of opportunity. And if you think you might like to explore the option of using hormone replacement therapy, there is a window of time when you can start it. So you can get to a point where you're too far past when you went into menopause that you can no longer have that as an option. And I think it would be sad if you started from video number 1 and the ones about the estrogen window of opportunity are like up around the 60s or 80s. And so let's say it took you a year to get to that. And then all of a sudden you realize you missed your window of opportunity because you were watching from the beginning. So I'm going to link those videos in the description box in the space below so that you can go check those out. But then once you watch those, then you can go back and start at the beginning of her videos and watch, because she just has a bunch of really helpful information. So I, like many of you, heard about the horrors of using hormone replacement therapy back in the early 2000s. There was a study that came out that said that pretty much the interpretation was that if you go on hormone replacement therapy, you have like 100% chance of getting breast cancer. Those results were actually misinterpreted. And I'm going to link this video for you too over on Dr. Taylor's channel, because she explains that study. She explains what the results were, and she explains how they were misinterpreted. And so, so I was very intrigued to hear all of this stuff about using hormone replacement therapy. I do not have a history of breast cancer in my family. I have almost a history of nothing. My mom has high blood pressure, but mine's low. Mine takes after my dad. And so I just was intrigued by this and thought, gosh, I felt really lucky not to have to use hormone replacement therapy when I was going through menopause, and just kind of thought that once that was over, that I wouldn't need anything more. But now here I was, a mess of a person with horrible quality of life issues. So let me just backtrack just a little bit and say that if you have absolutely no interest in using hormone replacement therapy, Dr. Taylor's channel has all kinds of information about handling your symptoms of menopause naturally. She talks about supplements that you can use to address certain issues. She talks about a diet that's good for menopausal women, how to use weight training to affect your bone density positively, of course. So there's all kinds of stuff. It's not just about using hormone replacement therapy, but there is a good chunk of videos in there that addresses hormone replacement therapy. So after going through that, I made the decision that I wanted to pursue hormone replacement therapy. She talks about her little slogan on her channel is your menopause, your way. And so she doesn't say you should do this. She just gives the information and says you need to take this information and then make your own decisions along with your doctor about how you want to proceed with this. So it was about July when I finally got an appointment with my gynecologist, and we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So it was a telemed appointment. I was happy to be able to meet with him in that way during a pretty scary time. But anyway, so when I was talking to him about it, I told him all of my symptoms, and he did ask me, he said, has your thyroid been checked? Because some of those symptoms you're mentioning could be thyroid. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes. The endocrinologist, did my blood work recently, and we got all that stuff with my thyroid balanced out. So this is what I'm left with. And so that's another thing. If you're having some of these side effects of menopause are also side effects of hypothyroidism. And so, you might want to have some blood work done that kind of checks all of this stuff and make sure that nothing else is out of whack that needs to be adjusted. So he did say, yes, you sound like, a candidate for using hormone replacement therapy. And he said, he did tell me, he said there are increased risks of breast cancer and stroke, I think he mentioned. And, but he said, like, here's the average risk that anybody has for those things. And he said that, like, for breast cancer, I remember him saying that my risk for getting breast cancer would be increased. I think he said 1 to 3% if I started to use hormone replacement therapy. And my response to him was, if I have to feel the way I'm feeling right now for the next 30 years, I don't want to live to be 90. And so I was just like, I cannot keep doing this. And so anyway, he said, okay, so then he started me on an estrogen patch, the second to the lowest dose, so that we could go down if necessary, we could go up if necessary. And they try to keep you on the lowest dose possible that will address your symptoms that are bothering you. The other thing that I had to get a prescription for was progesterone because I still have a uterus. So if you've had a hysterectomy, then you can just go with estrogen. But when you have estrogen in your body, it causes the lining of your uterus to thicken. And then when you're premenopausal, you have a period every month which sheds that lining, and there you go. But when you're postmenopausal and you're not producing enough estrogen, it doesn't hormone replacement therapy doesn't cause you to have periods again, but it will thicken the lining of your uterus. And so that can, if you don't have any way then to shed that lining, then it could lead to uterine cancer, which of course you don't want to have. So they give you progesterone as well, and that helps to thin the lining or keep it from thickening or something. But you need them together if you still have a uterus. So we are now at the end of April. I started this at the end of July in 2020. And so it's been about 9 months since I started taking it, and I feel like a totally different person. And I have felt like a totally different person for quite some time. So this was absolutely amazing. I noticed a difference when I put that patch on. I noticed a difference within 3 days. The first thing I noticed, and it wasn't the first night, but the second night after using it, I stopped having night sweats. Haven't had a single night sweat since the second night after I started using the patch. And then the next thing I noticed on day 3 was that I had a zit on my face. In the first week, I got 2 zits on my face. I have never been so happy to have oil on my skin. I mean, I have not had enough oil in my skin in decades to produce a zit. So I was just so excited about that. And then just day by day, I started noticing things changing. Some of the symptoms, depending on what you have, can take like 3 months before they go away. And that was true of the joint pain. That probably took about 3 months to go away, 2 or 3 months. And so now I just don't have any of that pain that I had before. But the sugar cravings went away. After a couple of weeks, the forgetfulness, the fatigue, the depression, that stuff started going away. In fact, one day I remember I was sitting on the couch and I thought of something I needed to do, and I was going to write it down on a pad of paper. And I just said, that's easy. I'm just going to go do it. And I got up and I did that thing. And then I sat back down on the couch and I thought of something else, and I got up and I went and did it. And then I sat back down. After the 4th time of going and doing something and sitting back down, I thought, wow, I'm being really productive today. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, because you're not fatigued anymore. So instead of just writing it down because I couldn't even bear the thought of getting up and doing it, I just felt like getting up to do these things. So it was absolutely life-changing to me. It was, my skin has started to change. I feel like it was looking really dull, and now it seems to have some brightness to it again. It's not, I mean, my skin has always been dry, but it just was getting, really like just really not good. And so it feels like it's changed back to what my skin was like before I was in menopause, and just so many different changes. Same with my hair. My hair it seems like it's got a little bit more life to it. And now, for those of you who watch my channel, I am using a product that is growing and thickening my hair because I have had kind of hair loss since I was in my 40s. So part of it is due to a product I'm using. I'll link it for you in the space below if you're interested in seeing the video about that. But anyway, it just seemed like everything, like the shine was coming back and different things. So, all right. So now I've talked to my doctor a couple of times about this since he started me on HRT, wanted to, check in with me. As I said, I use a patch. You're supposed to put it in your waist region. I kind of put it down so that my underwear will cover it up, and so down a little bit lower. And I'm supposed to put on a new patch 2 times in a week. So in order to get it exactly in the, exactly spaced, I put a new patch on Monday morning and Thursday night. You could just do, Monday morning and Thursday morning, but I was like, well, I don't want to take one patch off when it still has some good, estrogen in it. So anyway, I change them out twice a week, and then I take the progesterone pill, 1 pill every night. And that has been going for 9 months, and I haven't had to increase or decrease the dose. All of the changes have been positive for me, and I have felt so amazing. So when I was talking to my doctor, so he said that I could only be on this for like 3 to 5 years. And I thought, oh no, like in 3 to 5 years, which, in my mind was definitely going to be 5 years, I have to go off of this and feel horrible again for the rest of my life. I mean, how in the world? So anyway, I decided to do a little bit of digging around research on this. I talked to my former gynecologist who retired a few years ago, and she said that she's been on hormone replacement therapy for 17 years and doesn't plan to ever get off. She had a hysterectomy and had to start when she was younger, but she said, I'm staying on it forever. So I also talked to my endocrinologist, not that is her specialty area by any means, but she's the same age as me, and we had over the years been talking about menopause, and she'd always mentioned that she was planning to use hormone replacement therapy. And I just thought I was so lucky that I was, didn't need it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to talk to her because she's a doctor, she's a woman, and she's the same age as me. And so she must be going through this too. So I talked to her and I said, what do you think about the number of years? Because I know that some people stay on it forever. And she said, I wouldn't say that staying on it forever is the best thing to do. But she said, but maybe instead of talking about 3 to 5 years, maybe what you should be thinking more about is like around the age of 65. Maybe you should be thinking about getting off of it then, which was like, whew, because I'm thinking, okay, so I have 9 years that I can be on this. And so I'm actually thinking of, I am thinking about this, but I haven't done it yet, of changing gynecologists. I have a recommendation for one from my former gynecologist who, she said is very knowledgeable about menopause. And so I'm going to do that. But it's this whole thing of arming yourself with information so that you can handle this whole thing your way, your menopause your way. And so I think that that's such an important thing to do. And so that, that's kind of how I'm going to move forward with this. I don't want to stay on it for the rest of my life if there's going to be some horrible consequences to doing that. But I also don't want to get off of it and just be miserable because I was having such a hard time with it. Some people don't have a hard time at all. Like technically when my mom went off of hormone replacement, she was on it after she had a hysterectomy in her 40s, went off when she was probably in her late 60s. That's when that study came out and she got freaked out about it and went off. That's when she should have had some side effects, right? And she didn't. She said that she gets an occasional night sweat, but for the most part, after she went off, she was fine. That was another thing that the endocrinologist told me is that the older you get, she said, the older you get, the easier it is to live without estrogen in your body or as much estrogen. She said at first, the younger you are, the harder it is, the more annoying the symptoms can be. But as you get older, it is supposed to get easier. So when I get to the age of 65, because I fully intend to carry it out that long, but when I get to the age of 65, according to her, that I should maybe not have as much difficulty. I think there's always going to be a tough patch when I go off where I'm going to go through this little bit of time where I start experiencing the symptoms and they're not comfortable, but apparently those are supposed to kind of ease up after a little bit. So this video is not about telling you that you should do what I did and get on hormone replacement therapy, but really it's about helping you to find out what symptoms you could be experiencing that are due to postmenopause, and also just to help give you some information so that you can make wise decisions about what's happening to you. This last part of our life from menopause until the end is a pretty significant length of time. And so having the information so that you can make decisions that are best for you so that you can live your best life during this last part is really important. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope I'll see you again on Busy Being Jen. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel when you do that. So be sure to do that if you like the video. And I hope I'll see you again on Busy Being Jen. Take care, you guys. Bye.